Kia ora. Charles here from RCSA, give you an update for New Zealand for the month of March and what we're up to over the next couple of months. I've got to begin by saying we are absolutely devastated by the attacks in Christchurch. We simply have very few words to describe the shame in Australia, seeing that an Australian person can impose such grief and heartache upon our Kiwi friends. And for it to occur in Christchurch, which is a city that I've grown to love, and many of you will see my posts where I describe the fact that Christchurch to me represents inclusion and transition. I won't go on other than to say our hearts are with you, and I love the expression kia kaha. It certainly embodies everything that we see in New Zealanders. You are strong, you will stay strong, and I'm a big believer that good comes out of bad, and it will come. So please accept our sincere condolences and stay strong. I want to talk quickly about a number of matters that are happening across New Zealand, or indeed have happened. Let's kick off with the Triangle Employment Bill. Most of you will now know that we were successful in lobbying against the imposition of collective agreements on labour hire firms. We will, of course, continue to lobby in relation to the personal grievance rights of on-hire workers against clients. We don't mind that in principle. We think that where a client has acted inappropriately, they should be held accountable. But we do think it's important to make sure that the legal system doesn't get gamed, and that the rights for labour hire workers, professional contractors and otherwise to make claims against clients is reserved for very serious events rather than day-to-day changes of hours or changes in shifts. So that bill has been amended and has gone to a second reading speech, and we're in there fighting to make sure it is fit for purpose. I also want to talk about the fair pay agreements. Most of you, of course, will be aware that the government put together a working group, and they recommended the introduction of fair pay agreements that would sit on top of the minimum employment relations standards and also sit on top of collective agreements. Interesting that they suggested that 1,000 workers could actually impose or create a fair pay agreement. When you think that in some industries there are over 50,000 employees and independent contractors, it means that less than 2% of workers could actually create an agreement that would cover the entire industry. I'm not sure that's quite right. And the other thing that's interesting is that it would apply potentially, if they accepted the working group recommendations, not only to employees but to independent contractors. Very interesting concept, and one that could create a lot of confusion. And at a time where we need certainty so that you can capture the great opportunities in New Zealand, again, we will be out there saying, be careful what you wish for. It's got to be pragmatic, it's got to be practical. It shouldn't create more confusion. So we'll remain on top of that one as well. We established an immigration working group in New Zealand, which has been fantastic, working with our advocacy and policy team. We've just filed our submission on the immigration matters. The main thing we're looking for there is balance. So we want to make sure that professional firms like RCSA members are not treated in a manner that is the same as those few rogue firms that go out there and don't actually look after foreign workers when they are working on New Zealand shores. We also want to make sure that there is the capacity of New Zealand to respond to changing economic conditions and to grab those opportunities by addressing skill shortages. So this is all about balance. It's also about making sure that there is the opportunity for growth when it arises, and adaptation for that matter. So if you want to have a look at our immigration working group minutes, or indeed the submission to that inquiry, then feel free to contact RCSA at info@rcsa.com.au. The other matter is the Responsible Procurement Working Group that we've set up. You might be aware that we established that to establish standards that we would look to impose or require clients, government clients, commercial clients to adhere to make sure that they are upholding the spirit of responsible and equitable commercial terms, because of course there's a very thin line between or separating inappropriate tender terms or contract terms and poor outcomes when it comes to recruitment, placement service or staffing services. So you'll see shortly more information on that coming out. We've got representatives of procurement intermediaries and professionals sitting on that working group, not just staffing firms. So we're very excited about that. We think that is part of the way in which we can actually get a more balanced approach and more sustainable approaches to recruitment and staffing across New Zealand. You'll know that we've done a lot of work with MB and the All of Government panel. I guess that will continue. It is continuing, and we'll feed those standards into that group as well for those of you who are on the All of Government panel. We had a meeting with researchers on behalf of WorkSafe New Zealand yesterday. They're conducting an inquiry into labour hire. I've no doubt that they want to continue to focus upon safety in labour hire, so they should. But again, we want to make sure that they actually understand what is labour hire. Are they going to take into account professional contracting, nursing, teachers, the multitude of professional and white-collar elements of the industry as well? We also want to make sure that our finest and our brightest when it comes to safety have the opportunity to articulate what great safety practice looks like in our industry and the way in which we actually assist clients and candidates to end up with better safety outcomes by the inclusion of labour hire and staffing firms in the safety equation. So that will be an interesting one to watch. We're out there again fighting on behalf of RCSA members. We've completed a range of focus groups as well. Thank you to everybody who has made a contribution to our campaign fund to run those focus groups. Some really interesting outcomes there. A far higher degree of understanding and sophistication around the role of staffing and recruitment in New Zealand and Australia, and how it contributes to opportunity for individual candidates and workers, and how it makes business work. So I'm absolutely delighted to see that despite, I guess, some who are trying to argue that the so-called labour hire industry isn't necessarily pulling its weight, we're seeing a very different message come out of individuals. So that's very exciting. We're now moving to the strategy stage, and you'll see campaigns come out on that in social media and general media and directed towards politicians as well. The RCSA Industry Awards close in about 10 days. Just given some of the circumstances in New Zealand, we may well extend those slightly, but I'd absolutely encourage you to make a submission to the 11 different award categories. It's really, really important that we're loud and proud, especially at the moment, around who we are, what we do, and how we change lives. So if you've never made an application before, it's super easy. You only need to submit a video, and then we will celebrate on the 25th of July in Auckland. And let's smash it. Let's get a huge crowd there this year in Auckland, even beat last year, which was a record turnout. So get your submissions in. Check out our L&D calendar as well. We've got a huge number of L&D solutions, both face-to-face and online for the New Zealand market. Everything from personal branding development to empowering and pumping up your sales teams, right through to how to do proper and effective networking with clients as well. So if you haven't jumped onto our L&D site recently, jump on, go to rcsa.co.nz and check out how many great L&D solutions are there. The final thing is I'd love you to join the New Zealand specific LinkedIn group. There is so much information there that is really handy. Make it your homepage. Get involved, become part of the community. So stay strong, kia kaha, and till next time, I love your work.